Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Trustees, if you could return to your seats, please.
I feel like you're in a classroom.
I'd like to call the meeting to order, please. Sharu, can you read us with the line acknowledgement, please?
As we gather today with gratitude and respect, we acknowledge that we are located in the Ottawa area, which is on the sacred land and traditional unceded territory of the Algonquin Anishinaabe people. We honor all First Nations, Inuit, and Métis people and their valuable past and present contributions to this land and across Canada. We strive to be accountable by acknowledging this history and cultivating respect in our relationship with our Indigenous neighbours and the land. We are grateful to have the opportunity to be present in this territory to pray, learn, work, and grow.
Thank you very much. Father, can you lead us in prayer?
In the name of the Father, and of the Son, and of the Holy Spirit. Amen. Dear God, thank you for enabling us to gather here in this meeting. May we have meaningful discussions that will help us to build each other up and glorify your name. Help us to share things that will benefit all of us and draw facing as a team. May we approach each other with respect and kindness. Lord, create an environment of cooperation in this place. Help us to be one in the Spirit, and in Jesus' name we believe and pray. Amen. And I recommend the following people who have passed away recently to your prayers. Melissa Missy Ann Smith McKinnon, Student Services Office Administrator at St. Pius X High School. Daughter of Charlene McKinnon, retired Administrative Assistant in the Planning and Facilities Department, and current part-time OA at St. Isidore School. Brother of Michael McKinnon, caretaker in the Planning and Facilities Department. Daniel Cooligan, brother of Noel McCabe, ESL itinerant teacher, Family Welcoming Center, continuing and community education. Julia Godin, mother of Michelle Moore, retired consultant in the Special Education and Student Services Department, and grandmother of Stephanie Moore, teacher at St. Cecilia School. Daniel Pace, Superintendent of Education with the Wellington Catholic District School Board. Patricia Margaret Mogan, mother of retired Principal Martha Palmer and grandmother of Kyla Palmer, teacher at St. Anne's School. Carl O'Riordan, brother of Michael O'Riordan, behavior consultant in the Special Education and Student Services Department. And we also pray for our staff and students' extended family members as they grieve the loss of loved ones. Eternal rest grant unto them, O Lord, and let perpetual light shine upon them. May they rest in peace. Amen. In the name of the Father, and of the Son, and of the Holy Spirit. Amen.
Please stand for O Canada. Father, can you enlighten us on the saint of the month, please?
Oh, certainly. Tonight we are featuring Our Lady of Peace, one of the titles of the Blessed Virgin Mary, after whom one of our elementary schools is named. Our Lady of Peace Catholic Elementary School is located in Nepean. Mary, Our Lady of Peace, also known as Mary, Queen of Peace, and Mary, Mother of Peace, are titles she bears in honor of her Son, Jesus, the Prince of Peace. From the angelic song sung at his birth, glory to God in the highest, and peace to people of good will. To his final farewell words, peace I leave with you, my peace I give you. Jesus promised a different kind of peace, a peace that builds bridges between our lives and God's kingdom in the most extraordinary ways. We are all familiar with Mary's humble beginnings, her deep faith, grace, and docile nature, and her nurturing presence during life. As a true mother, she walks at our side. She shares our struggles and constantly surrounds us with God's love. And throughout the centuries, Marian spirituality and devotions, such as the Rosary, the different canticles and acts of consecration, have guided countless numbers of people into a closer relationship with Christ. Her maternal heart carries within it the constant prayer of the Church, a prayer for peace amongst all God's people. And in the company of Mary, Our Lady of Peace, the school community walks the way of peace. They know that peace is a gift that comes through prayer and through small daily efforts to sow harmony in one's family, parish, and community. And as close neighbors, the school shares a strong connection with Martin de Porres Parish, located just across the parking lot. Whether it is sharing school liturgies at a church or sharing a parishioners get to experience a taste of peace and the collaborative spirit it ignites. The close connection between the parish and the school overflows into the homes of local families. Our Lady of Peace School serves a wide demographic, many of whom depend upon the strength of the parish, home and school partnership for the support they need. And with the help of Parent Council, Knights of Columbus, Catholic Women's League, and many other community volunteers, Our Lady of Peace School is able to level the playing field for so many of their families. And whether it is collecting and delivering the many boxes of canned goods collected during the Advent canned food drive, donating school supplies, snowsuits, and gift cards at Christmas, or raising funds to support the annual Peace Walk, the peace-building spirit is plain to see. And as a community, they show us that peace is not just the absence of conflict. It's about creating the conditions where it is easier to make life into simpler for people to feed, clothe, shelter themselves as God intended them to. Without the parish, home and school partnership, the community would not be the peace-giving place it is. And in preparation for the upcoming feast day of Our Lady of Peace on January 24th, may Our Lady of Peace reignite in our hearts a spark of hope, a hope that can and must be translated into concrete works of peace by sowing harmony in our homes, our parish, and in our communities. Our Lady of Peace, pray for us. Amen.
Thank you very much, Father. We have no delegations. We do have a ratepayer in a public session. I would ask Anna Marie Gatuski to come forward, please. Going to make a presentation on the Half Moon Bay New Catholic School. Has anybody gone through the rules of the presentation with you?
Nobody has
Okay.
gone through the rules.
You'll be given 3 minutes. It's not a debate. You're making a presentation to the board. I would ask that you leave a copy of the presentation, if you have a copy, with the Secretariat when you're finished. Gentleman to my right, the director, will let you know when 3 minutes are up. He'll make some sort of acknowledgement at 2 minutes to let you know there's a minute left.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Anna Marie Gatuski, and my husband and I are Catholic ratepayers to OCSB. Our children attend St. Cecilia and St. Joseph. It gives me no pleasure in speaking tonight. However, you call out bullying and stand up when the need arises. And unfortunately tonight, I'm calling into question the integrity and transparency of the entire consultation process in regard to the Half Moon Bay Temporary Accommodation Plan, and do not know how the board could possibly approve the revised final recommendations and accommodation as per the report, only released to parents this past Friday, and with no follow-up consultation whatsoever, when not all substantial feedback or ideas were vetted or included. As stated on St. Cecilia's website, the boundary change is only effective upon the opening of the new school and therefore delayed until January of 2024. It was stated at the public meeting at St. Cecilia on November 23rd that maintaining the status quo at St. Benedict for the 2023-24 school year was not possible due to a lack of physical space and a projected student enrollment of 1,050 plus students. In contrast, St. Cecilia did not have this problem. Therefore, in my mind, in order to uphold the do no harm principle, which had been mentioned by a parent at the public meeting and was met with undisputed agreement by all parents, it made no sense to me that the board would entertain an accommodation plan that unnecessarily disrupted and upended both school communities when only St. Benedict lacked the physical space to maintain the status quo. My email feedback sent on November 24th made this point and proposed the idea of maintaining the status quo at St. Cecilia for the duration of the 2023-24 school year. How many St. Cecilia students fall within the new school boundary? As per Appendix 3 of the revised report, now that the grade 6 students have returned home, what percentage of the remaining 541 students at the new school actually originate from St. Cecilia? Although this number has not been forthcoming, I suspect it would be less than 25%. All that glitters isn't gold, and it was clear at the public meeting that current St. Cecilia families
1 minute remaining.
are not eager about the opening of the new school and the boundary change. We have been there, done that, and we would prefer that the status quo remain. As is the case for our family and many families at St. Cecilia, our arrival in Half Moon Bay predates St. Cecilia itself. I find it disingenuous on the part of the board that the projected September 2023 student enrollment at St. Cecilia has not been forthcoming and included in the report. I find it disingenuous on the part of the board that the number of new school students originating from St. Cecilia has not been forthcoming and included in the report. I find it disingenuous on the part of the board, after soliciting feedback, that the idea of maintaining the status quo at St. Cecilia for 2023-24 school year has been ignored, especially considering the fact that it is doable. I am therefore calling into question the sincerity of this consultation, and I respectfully request that the board reconsider its position, examine the aforementioned scenario, and retable an amended report, adopting this proposal at a future meeting. Thank you. Yes, thank you.
Could you leave a copy with Stephanie Dunn in regards to the there, please? Thank you. Is there any questions for clarification for the presenter? Seeing none. Thank you very much, Anna Marie, for your presentation. Can I get a mover for the approval of the agenda? Trustee Coburn and Trustee Warren. That the agenda for the regular board meeting of December 13, 2022 be approved as presented. All in favor? Opposed? Carried. School Department Profile, memo from the Associate Director of Education, Mrs. Donahue read the student trustees' mid-year presentation to the board. Welcome.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair. I don't think Sharu to my left and Sia beside him need any introduction. As the Board of Trustees knows, these are our two student trustees, and tonight I'm pleased to turn over to them their first of two presentations for the year. So I'll turn it over to Sharu and Sia.
So, hi everyone. Today we're going to be presenting our mid-year student trustee report, and in this report we'll be outlining the things that we've done in the past 4 months and what we hope to achieve in the next 6 months. So, hope you enjoy. Next slide.
Alex, we might need your help on the slides. I'm not sure if the clicker.
Okay, got it.
Thank you.
Okay. So the first thing that we want to talk about is OCSB Connect. So before we even started our term, me and Shrew really wanted to work on OCSB Connect. As if you don't know, OCSB Connect is a virtual tool for all students that they can use to anonymously tell their admin about things such as bullying, and it's a very important tool. But right now, it's very outdated, and we need to rebrand, and we need to improve the app so it's usable for all students. And that's something that me and Shrew brought up at the Safe Schools Committee meeting. And now we have a subcommittee dedicated to just that, rebranding OCSB Connect. And now Shrew is going to talk about collecting data.
So as Sia said, we're now on a subcommittee meeting, and we were presented with data at our first meeting, but there was some disparity in there that didn't really make sense. So we really wanted to gain a better insight into the student perspective. So we decided to create an unofficial survey. So the questions within the survey were designed to get a general idea of the student perspective, and some examples included, do you have OCSB Connect downloaded? Do you like it? Have you heard about it? And just several other simple multiple choice questions. And we also had an open-ended question at the end with what they would change about it, or if they had any general feedback. So we had this tool, but we needed a plan to send this out effectively. So what we decided to do was present these issues to our corresponding student councils, and we got them to fill out the survey. And then, luckily, as student trustees, we have access to our wonderful student senate, so we asked all the co-presidents to present that slideshow and share the survey with their councils. And as of now, we've received over 100 responses from over 10 schools in grades 9 to 12, and we're going to be presenting this data at our next meeting on the 19th of December, which is actually next Monday. And now moving on, so student association visits. So as we saw at the last board meeting at the student census presentation, we have a very diverse student population. And Sia and I are in charge of representing that diverse population. But that is challenging when we can't really communicate with them. So we decided that we're gonna meet up with these student associations. But that posed a challenge because we couldn't set up these meetings. So we decided that since St. Josephine is virtual, it would be easy and a great first step in order to set up these meetings through Google Meet. And we met with 3 student associations so far. So the first student association that we met with was the Black Student Association, or the BSA. And we just talked about various topics, and we were actually provided with an action sheet that covered way more topics with resources for us to learn more about. And then we met with the Indigenous Student Association, where we discussed the effects of colonization, and it was actually a very emotional experience for everyone there. And they really wanted to focus on facing the past instead of forgetting about it and educating people on the past. And then we met with the GSA, or the Gay Straight Alliance, and they really wanted to focus on the importance of pronouns and how everyone should be educated about the use of pronouns. And Sia's going to touch on this a bit more, but the common theme with all the student associations was the importance of education.
Yeah, so education is something that all of these student associations highlighted, and it's not just about educating, it's also about unlearning things that were harmful from the past, and we need to, and we need to focus on what we can do to improve the board, and we do that by visiting these student associations. So from me, I also visit the Equity Committee at Holy Trinity, and I love to sit in on these meetings and learn from different perspectives, because again, as Shrew said, we have to represent over the 40,000 wonderful students here at the OCSB, and we can learn from them. I mean, at the Equity Committee, an international student was telling us about how in her home country, every single lesson that they had was directly linked to a human rights declaration by the UN. And so it really, focused them on how this can be applied in the real world. And I know we talk a lot about deep learning, but deep learning can also be just taking 5 minutes out of your lesson and taking the time to apply what you're doing to the real world. And that really sticks with students, because it's not just about memorizing facts, it's about actually putting things into action. So Now we're going to talk about the Student Senate meeting. So we had our first Student Senate meeting on November 9th, and it was amazing. So first, we had a presentation by Dr. Ohoro about the equity in schools and the role of student leaders and being an inclusive student. Now, as you know, our Student Senate is made up of co-presidents. So all these people have already proven that they're student leaders. And so Dr. Ohoro highlighted how you need to, it's not enough to just attend a meeting you need, or a presentation on equity. You need to actually apply those principles in how you treat students and how you, lead in your school. And we did a brainstorming activity, and we also had discussion activities to discuss just how we can do that. We also talked about OCSB Connect, and we had an open discussion about that. Again, we were trying to collect information on how exactly we can improve OCSB Connect to make it more, user-friendly and make students use it, because again, it is a very important tool. And we brought that information to the subcommittee meeting. And we did some team-building exercises such as icebreakers, and we played collaborative games, because again, we did really have a lot of fun.
As Sia said, we met with the Student Senate, and it was a very fun experience, but that was us just connecting with a select few individuals from all of the schools. So we really wanted to connect with the student body on a deeper level. So Sia and I, we really wanted to establish a bridge. So what we did was we wanted to highlight student-related information from these board meetings to the students. And we decided that the best way to do this would be through a newsletter. So for example, our first newsletter talks about increased support for tutoring, the Benogi platform, and e-learning, just to name a few things. And with the help of Maddie and the communication teams, the newsletter has been published as a blog on the board website and all social media channels this morning. And our aim is to really post this newsletter every 2 months to cover about 4 board meetings. But on top of that, we'd also like to take advantage of our social media. So we're going to have 2 distinct initiatives with highlighting students of OCSB, which is where co-presidents will select a student from their school who meet the 6 C's, and then we're going to highlight them on the social media. And then we're also going to be making social media posts that cover the content posted in our newsletter in a graphic format for students to understand easier.
All right, so what we have learned in the past 4 months. So first of all, I just want to say, being student trustee is an amazing opportunity, and we're so thankful to be here. And the one thing that me and Shrew really love about being student trustee is that we learned that student voice is really, it really does matter. Because sometimes when you're a student and you're sitting in the back of a classroom, you're like, oh, no one cares about what I have to say. But when we sit over there and we make our remarks and we ask our questions, you all take us really seriously, and that is something that we really do appreciate, because sometimes, it doesn't feel like it, but it really does make a difference that you guys have us sitting over there and you listen to what we have to say. So thank you so much for that. Networking, that's something else we learned. You all are very talented individuals, and we have a lot to learn from you. And being able to talk to you and learn from you, and you give us awesome advice and all that, and it's really amazing that we get to do that. And the one major thing that we learned is time management. Me and Shrew both have really heavy 4U courses right now, and managing that on top of being student trustee is a difficult thing. But again, it's a skill that we value learning, because you're going to need that for the rest of your life. But now Shrew's going to talk about what we're going to do for the next 6 months.
So as Sia said, it's only been 4 months since we've been in our roles, and we still have 6 months to go, and we're hoping to do a lot. So I couldn't list everything that we were going to do, because Ms. Donahue said we have to be under 10 minutes. But some things that we have coming up is that after tomorrow, I'll be attending an educator book club with Mr. Daher and Madame Bilder, and we're going to be talking about a book called Digital for Good, where I'll be providing a virtual student perspective. After that, next Monday, Sia and I will be attending our subcommittee meeting, and we're going to be presenting our data and to hopefully determine some requirements for a new OCSB Connect application. And then next Wednesday, December 21st, we have our Student Senate meeting coming up, and we're going to be focusing on student trustee elections as well as Battle of the Schools. And we also find out that Dr. Balduke and Mr. Kelly will also be joining us, so we're pretty excited. And then last but not least, we have our OCSTA conference on January 20th to 21st, and we're just excited to network with other trustees, especially student trustees. However, Sia won't be able to make it, so I'm going to try to represent the both of us. And that leads us to the end of our presentation. And we just want to say thank you to every single person in this room, because we've been able to see that you all genuinely care about our education and you believe in us, which is, something that really hit home for both of us. And we think it's amazing what you do every single day. And we just want to thank you for giving us the chance to present. And we'd be more than happy to answer any questions.
Thank you very much. I have to give a presentation at the OCSA conference. Would you like to help? In front of the whole room of people. You good with that? Okay, good. Trustee Lawrence.
Thank you, through you, Mr. Chair. You guys, that was wonderful. Thank you very much. I am never going to admit to being a dinosaur, but I'm just wondering if maybe for the newsletters and that you could add us to the email. I function in email well. Some social media platforms I don't. That would be helpful because we are here for you. That's the reason with our 47,000 students. And you're doing a marvelous job. And then to see that and to be able to read that. I tried to get into Connect and had a bit of problems with that. But your newsletter you just posted, that would be great if you could add us to your email list.
Through you, Mr. Chair, thank you. Yes, we could do that, of course. It's actually posted on the school website, so we could just forward the link if you'd like.
Yeah, that mystifies me too, so. Email would be greatly appreciated. Thanks, you guys.
Sure, with the instructions. The least complicated, the better. So if you just add the 10 names to the email list, and I'd be the same. If I get the email, I'll look at it. If you're asking me to go look at something, time management thing, right? Any other questions? Trustee Moore.
Thank you, through you, Mr. Chair. And I want to say it's a comment. You found your space to make a voice. It would have been easy just sort of glide through because a lot's been done, but you found a space. So thank you. And because it's really what's needed. I know my daughter complained about it for years. So thanks so very much. And I look forward to what you're going to do in the next 6 months. Yeah, too bad you're missing out, Sia.
It's final exam season.
What's for you? Stay for another year. Don't tell your mother that.
Are you speaking as a parent now or a trustee? Trustee Simpson.
Wow, I'm very impressed with what you've accomplished in 4 months. I think we have to step up our game now, considering what you guys have done. I'm very interested. I know you haven't got the data yet because you're not presenting it till the 19th, but you made a comment that OCSB Connect is outdated. Could you just give us some idea in what ways it's outdated?
Through you, Mr. Chair. So the app is outdated in the fact that a lot of phones can't even support the app itself, and the user interface is also very difficult to use. Again, it was made I think 10 years ago, and it hasn't really been updated in those 10 years. So yeah, we're really looking forward to rebranding it and making it more usable for sure.
Supplementary? Are you planning any kind of communication drive after it's been updated to make sure that all students know about it and use it?
Oh, yeah, for sure. Functionality aside, one of the main things is the marketing, right? If students don't know or if they don't trust the app, then there's no point. So after we figure out how to fix the app and make it functional, we're really going to be putting all our effort into marketing it in the next school year, for sure. Yeah.
Any other questions or comments? Thank you very much for your presentation. And now you can go back and ask questions from the side. Can I have a mover to receive the report, please? Trustee Phelan and Trustee, get the pen working here, Melito. That the memo from the Associate Director of Education dated December 7, 2022, entitled Student Trustees Mid-Year Presentation of the Board be received. All in favor? Opposed? Carried. Declarations of conflict of interest. Seeing none. Confirmation of the minutes of the regular board meeting November 29, 2022. Moved by Trustee Coburn. Seconded by Trustee Moore. That the minutes of the regular board meeting of November 29, 2022 be adopted as presented. All in favor? Opposed? Carried. There's no unfinished business from previous meetings. There's no trustee motions. Presentation and consideration of committee reports. Committee of the Whole Board, December 13, 2022. Madam Vice Chair.
Mr. Chair, a recommendation has been brought forward, moved by Trustee Lawrence and seconded by Trustee Warren, that the Ottawa Catholic District School Board ratify the central terms contained with the Memorandum of Settlement and attached appendix dated November 20th, 2022, made between the Canadian Union of Public Employees and the Council of Trustees Associations, comprised of l'Association des conseillers scolaires des écoles publiques de l'Ontario, l'Association franco-ontarienne des Conseil Scolaire Catholique, the Ontario Catholic School Boards Trustees Association, and the Ontario Public School Boards Association, and agreed to by the Crown. Further, that this approval of the ratification of central terms be reported to OCSTA.
All in favor? Opposed? Carried. Item L1, presentation and consideration of staff trustee reports. Memo from the Superintendent of Continuing and Community Education, Continuing Community Education Home-Based Business Entrepreneurial Program. Welcome, Superintendent Valetti. Mrs. Kayed, Mrs. DeRoche, Duchesher, and Bridget Acamito de Mello. Welcome. I'm sure I mispronounced the names very bad.
So good evening, Mr. Chair. It's a true pleasure to be here this evening with Manager Kayed of the Continuing and Community Education Department, Ms. Dusher of the Ottawa Community Loan Fund, and Bridget Akinamedello, a graduate of our home-based business entrepreneurial program. This program is relatively new for the Ottawa Catholic School Board, and it's really been made possible by the commitment of our staff, but also from the commitment of Ms. Dusher. Before we begin, I'd like to mention that Bridget does have family members in the audience and present this evening, including her sister, who is visiting from Nigeria. So I'll ask Ms. Kayed to begin.
Okay. Through you, Mr. Chair. The OCSB Home-Based Business for Immigrant Women Entrepreneurship Program is funded by the Government of Canada through the Department of Immigration, Refugees, Citizenship Canada. Next slide, please. I'm not sure where the clicker. Oh, you've got the clicker. Okay. So LINK, some of you may have heard us talk about LINK before. The Language Instruction for Newcomers to Canada program is a language program that's offered across Canada to newcomers to Canada for government-assisted refugees and for people who are applying as permanent residents or who have received their permanent residence and want to improve their English. There is a French version called CLIC, but we just deliver the English version. And so it tends to be a generic program. So one of the things that came up when we applied for our funding 4 years ago, prior to the pandemic, was we envisioned changing LINK so that it became more of a hybrid model, but also tried to include more employment types of language training where we integrate language and employment together. So the idea for this program grew out of a demonstrated need within the Ottawa community. The program proposed encouraging newcomer women to improve their language and consider the value of creating a home-based business, which we acronymed HBB, to support themselves and their families, provide a service to the Ottawa community, and fill a training gap in the region. What was needed? First, the statistics in Ontario show that 36% of immigrant women are self-employed. Research also shows that immigrant women face multiple barriers to starting businesses. This includes things like facing discrimination, limited management and business training opportunities, difficulty with business planning, lack of mentoring, and insufficient financial understanding. The second factor that affected this program start was motivating us to look at how to use microbusinesses and look at in Ottawa. We know that there are other entrepreneurship programs offered by different organizations that are all very, very solid. But one of the things they all lacked was they all assumed that people have a certain level of fluency in English. Often people who have less fluency weren't able to participate even though they need to work and they need to support their families. The third factor was excluding, was something that we found in our adult programs. We've had a tradition at the Ottawa Catholic School Board of offering several programs in our ESL program that do integrate language and skills. And so we've got things like ESL sewing, we've got ESL for child care worker program, we have a home support worker program, we do ESL accounting and so on. But what was lacking was if somebody wanted to actually start a business from home or do bookkeeping part-time, how do you actually get started and where do you find the information? So this class stemmed from 5 goals that we identified with our partners, the Ottawa Community Loan Fund. First was to pilot a language training course that has a focus on language training, integrated with digital skills and business training. The second part was to pilot a model that could potentially be used by other school boards delivering language training and employment services in Canada in partnership with OCLF or other business organizations. Third was build on learnings from the pilot for ongoing sustainability and continuous delivery of the program in the Ottawa area beyond the end of the fiscal year, because at the time that this started during the pandemic, we envisioned that we had funding till the end of the fiscal year, and then we weren't sure if we had funding to continue it past 1 or 2 cohorts. The other point that we came up with was that also the idea was to help female newcomer clients plan and explore new pathways to independence appropriate to their goals and needs for employment and integration in the community. And finally, to integrate coaching support for an OCSB instructor and OCLF staff from the Ottawa Community Loan Fund. Next slide. Certainly, we've noticed a lot of impact. Again, this first cohort started in January 2021. And the courses are 5 months long and 15 hours a week, so it's part-time. And then they have 5 hours available to them a week of extra mentoring support if they need it. The idea for the course was based on teaching language and communication through focused content of entrepreneurship. The course structure is based on an outcome-based experiential learning model, referencing some aspects of various researchers, and I won't go into the names of them. Certainly, one of the things we know from research is that when you teach language and you embed other employment content, we tend to see improved and accelerated learning. So we're starting to see a little bit of that with some of the early statistics that we've had from the first 2 cohorts, and hopefully we'll be able to track more of that moving forward. In looking at how would we deliver a program like this, I approached Jane Deutscher from Ottawa Community Loan Fund and asked her to partner with us, and she'll explain a little bit about the work that they do in the community and why it's a good partnership, because it allows both organizations to focus on what they're really good at and not duplicate something or try to pretend that we're experts in something that we're not. So certainly it's been working really well so far. So I'd like to pass it to Jane Deutscher. Please welcome her, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. So just a little bit about Ottawa Community Loan Fund. We're a 20-year not-for-profit charitable organization in Ottawa, primarily serving newcomers and marginalized clients, with a focus on financial literacy when they first come to Canada to ensure they understand the traps of payday loans, high interest rate credit cards, and so forth. And then we entered into the space of entrepreneurship training because, as my colleague here, Marianne, said, many of our newcomers come with the dream of bringing some of their home with them, as you'll see when you hear Bridget's story. And truly, it's with the aim of creating economic self-sufficiency within these individuals that are looking to start the business. All of our programs are funded federally, provincially, or municipally, and offered via amazing community partners such as we have with OCSB. As you'll see on the stats here, when we were working together with Marianne and the team on the project, we were hoping to really test the success rates of a focused entrepreneurship training program with women who are actively interested in starting that home-based business. As you'll see, attendance rates and graduation rates of the entrepreneurs were quite exceptional. The entrepreneurship training program consists of 20 weeks of virtual class training covering different topics each week. 2 of the unique features of this training include 5 hours of one-on-one coaching, mentoring per student with our small business expert. There is a pitch event that we host at the very end for the students to share their business plans and receive feedback and suggestions from our Director of Education, myself, with many between us 50 years of financial and business background. Although the program ends after the 20 weeks, we continue to support these lovely entrepreneurs as they require support, whether they've reached a bump in their planning or their process or looking to move forward on their journey. We continue to provide the advice, consultations, and whatever is needed to support them in achieving their success. And as you can see on this page, these are active client-facing businesses that have been created as a result of the partnership with OCSB and the clients that we've served in the first 2 cohorts. We have 9 active clients that are serving people in our own community already. A true testament to the women in business owners as well as the program's success. So before I pass it to my colleague to my left, I would like to thank the chair for your time and all of you for listening to our success story. But our success is truly the people sitting with us and behind us. I'd like to introduce you, in my utmost pleasure, to Ms. Bridget Aki Madula. Over to you to share your story.
Thank you very much. I have to thank my chair and everyone in the audience. I really appreciate this privilege given to me. My name is Bridget Akimadelo, originally from Nigeria. I came into this country as a refugee in 2018. And the name of my business is called Bloom Outfit. So I came in through Quebec, and it was not really easy because of the language barrier when I tried to set up my business, though it was a passion-turned business. So this business is into sales of African fabric and making of African outfit. So when I try to do it and it doesn't work out, I have to cross over to Ontario. And when I came to Ontario, I tried some entrepreneurship business trainings, and it seems to all end up in theory. So on the verge of giving up, a friend introduced me to HBB. And I told her, I don't think I can go on again. But she told me I should give it a try. And truly, I gave it a try, and I was completely convinced about what she told me. So this training went on for 4 months, and it was really an amazing thing. It went beyond what my expectation was. And even though sometimes I feel like it's getting too much of me, I have a backup of all our facilitators, and mostly someone I can call Firosi. She has this statement she always utters to us, and she will tell us, please don't give up, you always have my back. So this kept me going, that even to the point of sometimes, in most cases, I have to submit my assignment in the middle of the night. And each time I feel like dropping, she will tell me, don't worry, we'll carry you along. And that was how I was able to continue. And I have this one-on-one mentorship, which was backed up by Camelia. So Camelia has been so wonderful in her mentorship program with me one-on-one. And she always throw me off balance with her questions. And these are the questions that I can say that brought me out of myself. So I've been able to now readjust my thinking, and this helped me to establish my own business. It has been registered, so I've been able to do, especially during the graduation, I have a lot of people that attended, and they gave me some clue on how to go about this business. Because this business is a business that really help the Africans in diaspora to feel at home. So they want all these African fabrics, but they don't know how to bring it here. So this is what I've been able to do, and it's really helping. So I can see the smile in their faces, and they are happy to have it. So I always give thanks to God, who has helped this organization to bring my dream to reality. And that is the reason why I always say that now I'm showing up my appreciation, and I will really, really be proud more than this by the time I'm able to stand on my feet. So I give glory to God, and I give thanks to HBB. So I'm really happy to also be invited here. Thank you so much, my chair, and everyone.
Mr. Chair, I would like to mention that behind us are displayed are some of the items that are available through Bridget's business, and if you have any questions, we'd be happy to answer them.
Thank you very much. Any questions or comments? Trustee Coburn.
Thank you for the presentation. So my comment is maybe a little bit technical. It maybe goes to Jane as opposed to Bridget. So I can see the mentoring you provide or the education you provide. The name of your organization is the Ottawa Community Loan Fund. So do you actually provide financing as well to the businesses to get them started? Because I know oftentimes that's a big piece that businesses, not just immigrant businesses, but any business starting out has difficulty with.
That's a great question, and I'm going to play this back to my own board. Since I joined them, I've questioned our title and our name, but we do not have our own capital, but we actually do spend time through the mentorship, and anybody that does need financing, we'll meet with them to make sure they're ready for presentation to a financial institution. We partner with at least 3 in the city, so typically if we've given it the thumbs up, it generally has a favorable outcome, but we don't actually have our own capital.
Any other questions? Trustee Simpson?
This is more of a comment than a question because I've had the pleasure of attending some of these graduations, which are phenomenal. I really want to thank you for coming out and speaking to us because your success is we get to feel a little bit of success with the success of our program, and congratulate you on your bravery. I don't think I could be an entrepreneur. I don't think I have the intestinal fortitude for what it takes. So when you're saying to me that you had to push yourself and you submitted things in the middle of the night questioning yourself, brave on you because you've undertaken a lot. So congratulations. Even coming and talking to a bunch of us in a second language is bravery in itself. So thank you so much for coming and sharing with us. And I hope you give your instructors some feedback too, because we're always wanting to move forward with our courses and improve our courses, and we really do feedback from students. So thanks again.
Thank you.
Any other questions or comments? Again, Bridget, I'd echo on the Board of Trustees that congratulations on what you've done and good luck in your future endeavors. And as you know, you can't give up and you just got to keep trying. So good luck with your future endeavors. And thank you for your presentation.
Thank you.
Mover through the presentation, please. Trustee McEwen. And Trustee Melito. That the memorandum from the Superintendent of Continuing Community Education dated December 6, 2022, entitled Continuing Community Education Home-Based Business Entrepreneurial Program be received. All in favor? Opposed? Carried. Item 2, a memo from the Superintendent of Leading and Learning re Indigenous Education updates. Welcome Superintendent Slack and Ms. Trines. Welcome, Alana.
Good evening, Mr. Chairperson and trustees. This evening, I am joined by our Indigenous Education Coordinator from the Leading and Learning Department, Alana Trines. Alana and her team have been working hard implementing our Indigenous framework in our schools and across the OCSB system. She's here with us today to share some of the things that they've been working on and to bring you some updates from our Indigenous education team. At this time, I'd like to pass it over to Alana.
Thanks, Tim. Hi, everyone. Good evening. It's nice to see you all again. So I'm really excited to be able to speak about some of the updates that are happening this year with regards to Indigenous education. And right here on the home slide actually is the Indigenous education logo, which was created at the end of last year by Kitigan-Zibi Algonquin community member Albert Dumont. And some of you may know Albert Dumont as Ottawa's English Poet Laureate. And so he collaborated with us to create this logo. So hopefully whenever we are doing anything that has to do with Indigenous education, you'll be seeing this branding on a lot of our resources and materials. So I really did want to start by updating everyone on the team. When I began in this sort of role a couple of years ago, it was myself and 0.5 other person. And so you can see that the team has grown exponentially in a small amount of time. And that does speak as well to to the board for recognizing the importance of Indigenous education and allowing us to expand our team. And so for those of you that do have access to this slide deck, that is actually a link at the top of this slide where you can click on the roles and responsibilities just to get an idea about what each of us do day to day. And if you do have any specific questions for anyone on the Indigenous education team, you can reach out to us directly based on those roles and responsibilities. So I am just going to go through some items that we have updated for elementary. So we did do a couple of writing projects last year, one for kindergarten and one for the junior grades. And these are going to be fully functioning education packages for teachers to be able to implement Indigenous content throughout their classes. The kindergarten package has a lot to do with land-based learning and examining animal tracks and a lot of inquiry-based learning as well, and also encourages collaboration with Indigenous community. And then the junior packages have to do with specific language arts texts, and lesson plans are included with those. So if teachers so choose to use an Indigenous text for their language arts block, they can use that, and then the content is also included, because sometimes there is a little bit of respectful hesitation from teachers because they don't want to, do it wrong, so to speak. And so we have curated these packages to facilitate teachers being able to use Indigenous content in their classes. We're also doing blanket exercises across the system, not only for elementary schools. So for any of you who may not have participated in the blanket exercise before, perhaps I can maybe, nudge Tim over here and maybe we can have a PD session together one day and we can all participate, because it really is a phenomenal exercise and it's experiential. And I know everyone that I've participated in that with has said that they've learned a lot. So that would be something incredible if we could maybe, move forward and talk about that a little bit. That would be great. And then we are also doing a lot of land acknowledgement instruction in elementary schools, which is incredible because there's a lot of interest from teachers. And we've created 3 different land acknowledgement lesson plans that are available on the Indigenous education website, one for primary, one for junior, and then one for intermediate senior, so that teachers do again have content to relate to, be able to present and facilitate creation of land acknowledgements in their classes. We did hire a new elementary consultant. Her name is Stephanie Sanders, and she's working K to 6, so that's wonderful because she's able to do a lot of hands-on work within schools. And we have rewritten the persona dolls. For those of you who may have heard about that project, there was a couple things that we needed to update for the Indigenous dolls, so that's exciting as well. And then lots and lots of climate action initiatives throughout the elementary schools. With regards to secondary, we are, as the student trustees mentioned, establishing Indigenous student associations in all high schools. And our student and family support worker, Heather Gaudet, is going through all schools to try to figure out who the Indigenous students are and how we can gather together in community and be able to do some initiatives in schools. And depending on the school, the initiatives vary, but that's the great thing about all of the variety of high schools across our system. We are also looking at recruiting for the summer program right now. We did start that program last summer with great success, and we're looking to expand moving into next year. So if any of you do know of any Indigenous students, point them in my direction, and we can get them recruited for that program in the summer where they would earn a credit. We did just complete the canoe build at St. Matthew High School. This is a project that we'd like to do annually. Our goal is to have a birch bark canoe built for every high school across the system. Currently, 3 schools do have one, and so St. Matt's is now the 3rd, so that's very, very exciting, and it was a wonderful opportunity for them to experience that taking place right in their school foyer. We also are doing an NBE, or which is known as the Grade 11 Understanding Contemporary First Nations, Métis and Inuit Voices course. It's the replacement for the former Grade 11 English course, and we're doing a summer exchange exchange for that, actually. So students who will be taking that program in the summertime will be able to visit many Indigenous communities and actually do an exchange with Indigenous students while earning that credit. We do have a lot of one-to-one student support and group support, again, through the student and family support worker, and I am excited to say that we did put out a second job posting for that position. So moving forward, hopefully into the new year, we will have 2 people in that role in the new year. So that's wonderful news. We are also revisioning the NAC, or Expressions of First Nations, Métis, and Inuit Cultures course, which is a grade 9 arts-based course. We have, as a board, really made it like a visual arts course, but we want to expand that into all of the different art forms, because as we know, Indigenous culture isn't specific to visual arts. There's dance, there's theater, there's music, and so we are looking at just revisioning that course, so any schools that are offering it will have a lot more diversity to choose from. And then, as I mentioned, another support worker, and then also we're really working hard on French language resources. This is something that's been requested very widely across the system, and we want to make sure that we are creating a lot more French language resources. So we are going to be doing a translation project moving into this year as well. And then throughout the system, we are going to be collaborating with Sudbury District Catholic School Board, because they have a school that is specifically designated for Indigenous culture and education. So we just want to kind of talk to them a little bit about their model and see what they're doing. It's a pretty special thing that they have done there. And so we're really looking forward to collaborating with them and learning from them. And lots of requests for restorative practices work. I know that's not necessarily directly linked with Indigenous education, but I am a licensed trainer, and so I do get called upon quite often to do restorative practices work across the system, and I thought that would be important for all of you to be aware of as well. And just yesterday, we met with the 3 other Ottawa boards because we are trying to do a lot more collaboration, so that not only are we teaching things consistently throughout our communities, but also because I think our communication between the 4 boards hasn't always been regular, so we are trying to make sure that we're talking across the city about what we're all doing, because that's just good practice. And we did have a leads gathering this year, finally in person. It was wonderful. There was so much fantastic learning happening, and I just look forward to going again next year. And we are also preparing for forest school certification within our team. So that is something that's going to be great because a lot of people want to incorporate land-based learning from an Indigenous perspective, and this will facilitate that. Again, with regards to the framework, I'm hoping to perhaps give another update a bit later on in the year about that, but we are working on all of the Year 1 goals. So if you have not checked out the Indigenous Education Framework document, please do. It's accessible on the Indigenous Education website right on the homepage, and I've just listed there a couple of the Year 1 goals just for you to review. And again, if you have any questions about that framework, please reach out. I love to talk about it because it's a very exciting project for us at the OCSB. We do have many professional development and board events. The one that I would like to highlight is that Robin Wall-Kimmerer will be joining us via live stream in April. And for those of you who are unfamiliar with her, she's the author of Braiding Sweetgrass. And so we will be putting out messaging about that because she's just for us. So it's going to be a very exciting event during Earth Month. And then just a couple of challenges, as I'm sure you're all aware. Because we haven't been able to have PD due to the OT shortages, it has been difficult to continuously provide teacher training throughout the year. So that is something that I'm really excited about, hopefully in future years when the OT shortages can become perhaps hopefully less of an issue, but did just want to raise that. Again, I'm sure you've heard that at length. And as well as self-ID data, that's another item, I should say, that I'd like to increase moving forward for more Indigenous families to self-identify. And then we also want to improve our communication across the board. So, just getting out messaging more consistently to everyone so that everyone is aware of the Indigenous Ed team as well as the projects that we're doing. So that's my time. Happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Elena. Trustee Lawrence.
Thank you through you, Mr. Chair. I can't keep up with you. It's just impossible. I read all the newsletters, et cetera, et cetera. Yeah, maybe you can't answer this, but I was just wondering, how is the grade 11 course going? Have you had much feedback on it?
Thanks so much for your question through you, Mr. Chair. Absolutely. As a matter of fact, in the year before we rolled it out throughout the board, we did a survey, and then we did another survey last year, just asking students their thoughts as well as teachers and how they were sort of implementing the materials. Students, you know, pretty much the majority were saying that it's the best course they've ever taken. And even teachers who perhaps may have been a little reluctant at first because, you know, we're all a little scared of change, who were perhaps a little bit nervous about it, also said that this course has taught them so much that they didn't know. So that's fantastic. The one shift that we've actually been making based on feedback is that we were sort of focusing a lot on the trauma component of Indigenous culture, you know, residential schools, 60s scoop, etc. And now we're trying to move into more of an era of celebrating the beauty and brilliance of Indigenous culture. So that's going to become more of a focus in the course in years to come.
Thank you, through you, Mr. Chair. I think we're learning the world over of, had we followed more, and if we possibly do in the future, Indigenous ways of respecting Mother Earth, has that come into play through our education system, given climate change and all that is and will continue to bring us? That's not good.
Absolutely, and through you, Mr. Chair, it comes up again and again, questions about environmentalism, hence the talk with Robin Welkimmer in April, as well as teachers really wanting to be, you know, curious about, well, how do I incorporate the land into my teachings? That's a question that we get a lot, and I'll be frank, just because something is called land-based learning doesn't make it Indigenous learning. And so, you know, we have to be very careful there. So what we're trying to do is show teachers how to incorporate the land into their classrooms and teachings with an Indigenous lens. And so all that to say, it really is something that's coming up quite regularly, and we're getting a lot of questions about it, but that's a good thing because that means people are aware that it's something we should be talking about.
And I think Australia and New Zealand have begun to integrate that well. I'll stop now.
Trustee Coburn.
Thanks for your presentation, Alana. So I would support your thought about a blanket exercise for this Board of Trustees. If you haven't been through one, I think it's something that would be beneficial to the board. My question is on the restorative practices. So you're saying you're getting lots of requests from those. Can you give us just a cross-section of maybe where those requests are coming from?
Thank you for your question through you, Mr. Chair. Absolutely, they're coming from everywhere. I mean, there's elementary schools that are asking for me to come in and do lunch and learns, which I've been doing this year, to come in and speak at staff meetings. Again, I'll be quite frank, it is a challenge to do a restorative practices presentation in a simple 50 minutes. It's actually quite impossible because just the certification training alone is 2 to 3 days. However, to give a just brief introduction, I'm happy to always do it, and I do know that people are still learning from that as well. And I am working very closely with one of our high schools, Notre Dame High School, who really want to implement restorative practices across their system. And so we've created a plan from now until the rest of the year, incorporating book clubs as well as Saturday learnings because of, again, the OT shortage. But they are a community that really wants to implement restorative practices as well, so I'm working closely with them this year. Thanks.
Trustee Moore.
Thank you very much. Through you, Mr. Chair. I think you might have answered part of this, Alana, already. But I caught up that, was it forest school certification is what you said, but you wrote down participation. So is that part of what you're meaning, that just because it's in the forest doesn't mean it's Indigenous based?
Thanks for your question through you, Mr. Chair. Yes, so a lot of people are wanting to participate in outdoor education, like learning on the land, but our team is actually becoming certified in forest school pedagogy. And so myself and another one of the consultants are going to be actually taking that training, which is over the course of 3 separate weekends in February and March. So we're hoping that based on receiving that certification, we will then be able to better give ideas to educators about how not only to teach outside, but also incorporate that Indigenous piece.
Any other questions or comments? Trustee Fallon.
Maybe just a quick comment through you, Mr. Chair. Of all the 4 boards meeting at the table and collectively, sharing information and knowledge transfer, is the OCSB leading in the space? Are you? I see a great team on here. There's a lot of people, and it's great. And you put together an amazing presentation tonight. But just wondering in general if we're leading at those conversations, or is it collaboration and the 4 boards are sort of equal in nature on the information they're sharing across their boards?
Thanks for the question through you, Mr. Chair. All boards are on different areas of the learning journey. So the public board, the Public English Board, has a team almost double the size of ours, but I mean, again, their student population is bigger than ours as well. But the way that they are sort of running their programming is quite different to ours, but not in a good or bad way, just because their communities require different kinds of programming. I can tell you that we are leading the way insofar as we are the only board that has an Indigenous education framework specifically, which is a really big deal because that outlines very specific goals that relate to Indigenous education that we are working towards collectively. And so we are certainly leading the way in that sense. And then the 2 French boards are quite small, and their teams are quite small, I should say. And so therefore their initiatives are different. And their Indigenous education teams are also relatively new compared to us and then the Public English Board. And so what they're actually trying to do right now is very grassroots sort of things within classes, and they're really trying to just create safe spaces. They've actually removed a lot of their Indigenous guests for now because teachers weren't necessarily utilizing community collaboration in a positive way. And so both of the French boards have said we need to start from the very, very beginning and really start with teacher training. And so that's where they are currently. So we're all a little bit on different journeys, but definitely leading the way with regards to our framework.
Is there any other questions or comments? Thank you very much, Elena. Pleasure to see you again. Thanks for your presentation. Can I have a mover, please? Moved by Trustee Coburn, seconded by Trustee Lawrence, that the memorandum from the Superintendent of Leading and Learning dated December 7th, 2022, entitled Indigenous Education Updates be received. All in favor? Opposed? Carried. Item number 3, memo from the Superintendent of Leading and Learning, preparing and celebrating Advent. Welcome back, Superintendent Slack, and welcome, Mark.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. We are now in our 3rd week of Advent here at the OCSB and as a faith community. This is a liturgical season where we have lots to celebrate and prepare for in our schools and community while we're in the season of waiting. Tonight, I'm joined by our Coordinator of Religious Education and Family Life, Mark Scholik. Mark is here to give you a presentation on some of the events, learnings, and opportunities that our students and staff are experiencing and taking part in this Advent season in our schools. At this time, I will hand things over to Mark to share with you his presentation.
Thank you, Superintendent Slack. Good evening, Board of Trustees, members of senior executive, visitors here, and those joining us virtually. Through you, Mr. Chair, it gives me great pleasure to present to you some of our initiatives board-wide in and around Advent and leading into the 12 days of Christmas. Please advance the slide. Oh, I'm sorry. As a Catholic educator and as a Catholic, I like to take my lead from the Holy Father. And Pope Francis, in his address on the first Sunday of Advent on November 27th, calls us to be awakened, to remind us that we need to be prepared for the season, to experience the hope and the joy and the love that Advent brings in preparation for the coming of Christ. In collaboration with our communications department, messaging has gone out every week for Advent. We began with a blog written by myself in and around the representation of what the meaning of the 3 purple and 1 pink candle are for the Advent wreath. We have messaging that goes out for each week, and outside it's reflected facing Hunt Club. As well with communications, if any other requests come up, for example, even today, because it's so wonderful that this year how the school calendar ends, that we celebrate all 4 weeks of Advent before we go into the Christmas season, which is a very rare occurrence. I think in my 27 years in education, maybe 4 times. It's wonderful. So now all the candles will have an even burn this year, which is always a nice thing for that there. As well, prayer for Epiphany, because we will be still away on our holidays during the Feast of the Epiphany. Here locally at the CEC, we have our nativity scene outside, which you can see on the side of the link. We have ours in the front foyer. We have our second Advent wreath in the front entrance, and as well within the chapel here for your viewing. Since we have been back to school, even the preparations within our school communities have been absolutely wonderful, and the requests have been many. Some resources that we've created, as I had mentioned, celebrating all 4 weeks of Advent during the school year. We have created our liturgies for elementary and secondary school, reflecting the liturgical year A and the Gospel of Matthew and the infancy narratives. For our elementary students, we take our readings from the Children's Lectionary, which we also have provided to all of our faith mentors across our elementary schools. We have secondary resources that reflect intercultural traditions. We have our Epiphany Mass prepared as well, and one of our partners in Catholic education on our religious education website is the Religion Teacher website, and Jared Dees out of South Bend, Indiana, and the University of Notre Dame. He has created resources that we have a license to share. It gives me great pleasure to present to you some examples of the submissions for our Director of Education Christmas contest. This year, the amount of submissions and the quality of the submissions was absolutely outstanding. The sheer volume, assisting Anna Maria Frangioni, our K-6 arts consultant, with looking at them. Very impressive, very inspiring, the talent that we have in our students across the system. The winners will be shared, but we also, with the Catholic Register, had submitted our top submissions to the Catholic Register for their Christmas contest. So hopefully a little bit of exposure across the province of all of the amazing things that we do here in Ottawa. From east to west and north to south, this was within the first week of Advent, most of these tweets, but every day the amount of times our OCSB Advent hashtag is used, and we are tagged for a variety of activities that go across. We could spend a whole evening here just looking at all of the wonderful things that are going across in terms of the acts of service and the activities that the students are doing and the preparation of liturgy and Mass and the partnerships with the parishes and our parish priests. And the examples are many. and just so beautiful. And here locally at the CEC, every year our liturgical committee has an Advent collection. And this year, in collaboration with Learning Technologies and Superintendent Edwards, our focus was on collecting snowsuits, snow pants, boots, mitts, all of the winter items required for our student support schools. I am going to be truthful and say that this year has been quite a challenge to years past in terms of collecting. With the relationships that we've built with the various councils of the Knights of Columbus across the Archdiocese of Ottawa-Cornwall, and our new introduction with some of the Catholic Women's Leagues, namely Sandra Blaze at Our Lady of Visitation, and our Knights of Columbus from the St. Pat's Council, Jean-Philippe Tardif and Donald McDonald. They were able, through their networks, to communicate, to align a lot of the councils, to collect the funds to buy boxes of winter coats. So as of today, we are expecting 16 to come this week, 16 dozen, with another 16 dozen boxes to come, hopefully before we break for the holidays. The Catholic Women's League from Our Lady of Visitation, with the help of Father Kerslake, the Episcopal Vicar, I believe he still is the Episcopal Vicar, through their network, reached out 200 toques, 50 pairs of waterproof mitts, boots, can't tell you how many pairs, not as many as we would like, but every bit helps, and just the support that they're giving and always looking to assist us. It has been great. Our second collection here at the board is for Toasty Toes, collecting socks, which mostly go to the Shepherds and to the Salvation Army in downtown Ottawa. And at this time, I invite any questions.
Thank you very much. Is there any questions or comments? Trustee Moore.
Thank you very much. Through you, Mr. Chair. I've been able to witness for the schools that I see daily how there's Advent calendars or Advent wreaths starting to come home, and they're excited about the liturgies every week. Well, not the 7/8s, but they are very intense. It's across the board. You can see it. Thank you.
Thank you for your comment, Trustee Moore.
Any other questions or comments? Thank you very much.
Just a quick comment. I'm very impressed with the breadth and depth of information that's provided as resources for teachers in this very, very busy season of Advent. It's really nice to be able to lay your hands on a resource so that you can help your students participate in the joy of the season without having to run around looking for resources. So I want to thank your department for that.
Thank you, Trustee Simpson. Through you, Mr. Chair. I would be remiss if I did not mention the members of my team, our new K-6 consultant, Jessica Thompson, Father Gerard Monahan, our faith animator, and Jeff Guittard, our faith animator. We have a wonderful team, and we always look forward to helping any way that we can.
Thank you very much, Mark, for your presentation. Can I have a mover and a seconder, please? Trustee Simpson and Trustee Phelan. That the memorandum from the Superintendent of Leading and Learning dated December 7th, 2022, entitled Preparing and Celebrating Advent be received. All in favor? Opposed? Carried. Thank you. Item number 4, memo from the Superintendent of Planning and Facilities the New Barrhaven South Elementary School Temporary Accommodation Plan. Welcome, Superintendent Vaughn, Mr. Baxter.
Good evening, Mr. Chair, and thank you. So it's my pleasure to introduce our manager, Ian Baxter, who will be making a presentation on the revised accommodation review for the boundary for the Barrhaven South New School. So, Manager Baxter.
Thank you, Superintendent Valla, and good evening, everyone. So through you, Mr. Chair, trustees have in front of them tonight a memo respecting a recommended temporary accommodation plan for students who will attend the new Barrhaven South Elementary School. So this memo has been provided in order to inform you of a delay in the planned opening of the new school, update you with the current schedule, and provide you with a recommended plan for the accommodation of students in advance of the new opening date. As you will recall, the board approved an attendance boundary and opening grade structure for the new school in June of 2022. That decision was taken after the completion of a local consultation process. At that time, the new Barrhaven South Elementary School was planned to be opened for September 2023. Unfortunately, that opening date is no longer possible. We have been informed by our general contractor that delays in the delivery of steel joists will serve to push completion of the new school building to December of 2023. This is disappointing news for all of us, and we share that disappointment with the two school communities that will be impacted, the students and the families at St. Benedict and St. Cecilia. So the challenge in front of us right now is twofold. We will have a new school building that will be ready to receive students in January 2024, and we also have significant enrollment growth taking place in Barrhaven South, in particular those areas located west of Greenbank Road served by St. Benedict. Enrollment at the school is 916 students currently, and there are 16 portables required on site. Those figures are projected to increase to 1,050 students for September 2023, and a need for up to 21 portables. So those numbers are simply not possible to accommodate. Taking these things into account, a proposed plan was formulated for the temporary accommodation of students for the 4-month period in advance of the opening of the new school building. This plan was provided by email to parents of both schools, St. Benedict and St. Cecilia, on November 11th. Under the plan, kindergarten and grade 4 to 6 students for September 2023 who live within the new school attendance boundary would be temporarily accommodated at St. Benedict, while grade 1 to 3 students would be accommodated at St. Cecilia. The new school and all of its individual classes would be formed for September 2023. There would be, in quotes, a new Barrhaven South School at St. Benedict and a new Barrhaven South School at St. Cecilia. Students would be assigned teaching staff, and those arrangements would remain in place for the transition to the new school building located at 135 Main Halyard Lane in January of 2024. Although the plan would result in some students having to relocate from St. Benedict to St. Cecilia and vice versa, it would serve to keep new school students accommodated locally within the Barrhaven South community. Some families would have children at both schools for the 4-month period under the proposed plan, approximately 75. In preparing the proposed plan, we did look at other scenarios, but the situation is very tight in terms of projected enrollment and available classroom capacity. We looked at a mid-year opening for the new school with everyone staying in place at their current schools, and also with a JK to 3, 4 to 6 temporary accommodation split. We also looked at keeping everyone in place and transitioning students to the new school for September 2024 instead of for January. These would have resulted in the need for a higher number of portables or the relocation of simply a different group of students. As mentioned earlier, the proposed plan was provided to parents of all students at St. Benedict and St. Cecilia on November 11th. A Google form to solicit input was included in that communication, and an invitation to attend a public meeting to discuss the proposed plan was extended. That meeting was held in the gymnasium at St. Cecilia on the evening of November 23rd. And I think it's fair to say that participation was good. Approximately 30 parents attended the meeting that evening, and we also received 22 separately submitted pieces of feedback. Input received during the consultation process focused on the following areas. Request to permit new school grade 6 students to finish out at their existing schools. The challenges of having children in 2 different schools for a period of time. Request for new school students to remain in place and transition to the new building for September 2024. And concerns generally regarding the mental health impact that any additional movement would have on students who have been through the pandemic over the past 2+ years. As a result of the feedback we received, we are recommending a revision to the proposed plan that was sent out to the 2 school communities. This revision would serve to open the new school with a JK to 5 grade structure in January of 2024 and result in new school grade 6 students remaining in place at both St. Benedict and St. Cecilia for the entire 2023-2024 school year. The impact of the recommended revision is manageable in terms of enrollment and accommodation at both of the sites. While recognizing the challenges involved for impacted students and families, we feel that the plan is the best possible outcome for all involved under challenging circumstances. The plan will keep families accommodated locally within Barrhaven South schools. It will also transition students to the new building as soon as possible, thereby reducing enrollment pressures at existing sites. Should the recommended plan be approved, we will continue to work with OSTA around transportation planning and the possibility that start times for the 2 schools could be temporarily revised to introduce a 15 or 20-minute interval in terms of start times. Both schools right now, the start times are 9:15. We will also work with early learning services staff to ensure that extended day programs can accommodate the interim placement of students. With regard to the formation and operation of the new school, classroom teachers, administrators, special education resources will be assigned during the spring staffing process, just like any other new school. Opening for September, a school council will be formed during the early part of the fall, and transition-related activities will take place during that 4-month temporary accommodation period. So I think I'll leave things there for now, and if there are any questions from trustees regarding the report, staff are here tonight to answer them. Thanks.
Questions, Trustee Warren and Trustee Moore?
Might the borrow yours. Thanks. Through you, Mr. Chair, somewhere. Thanks for the presentation. I understand this has been quite the journey for you guys with the community. Like you, I've received many emails, phone calls with concerns around this. There's many different ways you can slice and dice this, and it probably comes out with the same results in the end. My question is around the supply chain that's happening right now. Being in the construction industry myself, the problem is not going away anytime soon. In fact, is it fair to say that the probability of not being finished on time for December is probably high? So would the recommendation not be better to keep the school year going? Because if you're already accommodating for the 3 months, what more impact would it be if you carried on for the rest of the 3 months in the same situation that you have and having a September opening for the new school? This would also, so this would alleviate some of the pain with trying to close on time by December to get the school going up and running by January. It alleviates some of the pains probably around OSTA trying to get the buses in order for a January start. And it also alleviates some of the pains I think the community is having with shifting schools mid-year. I think there's multiple questions there, but thanks.
Through you, Mr. Chair, and in response to the trustee question, if I understand the question correctly, I think you're asking about potentially the impact of not opening the school mid-year, but opening for the following September of 2024 in terms of limiting or reducing disruption to students and families. And we did look at that. That was one of the first things we looked at. And the issue really is the fact that we do not have enough space. I think as I indicated earlier, the projected enrollment at St. Benedict is 1,050 students, so a requirement of up to 21 portables on site. So if we were to wait and transition students to the new school for September, we would have to move some students out of St. Benedict. So, you know, that number probably is up to maybe 125 or so. So there would be disruption regardless of whether it was a mid-year opening or whether it was a September opening. It's a matter of how many students and families and who. And if we were to not form that school for September of '23, like the likelihood is that we would not only be disrupting potentially new school students, there would be students who wouldn't be transitioning to the new school, but who would move from St. Benedict, even though they weren't new school students.
Supplemental. Thanks. I think I framed my question incorrect. I like your proposed idea of balancing the two schools up until, so the new proposed way I agree with, but what's the impact of keeping it that way until September? Because you already have that balance in place. So would it not just make sense to carry that on until the end of the school year?
So form the new school, sorry, through you, Mr. Chair, and in response to the trustee question. So form the new school for September under the plan that's being proposed and recommended, but not move those kids over to the new school for January, but move them for September. I think the issue would be, I think the benefit really is those classes are all formed. Those arrangements would remain in place in terms of student and teacher. We have available space in place. It's one thing, you know, I think you had talked about supply chain issues and the possibility of that new building not being ready for December. I think we're fairly confident that we are going to get that school building open for December, or completed for December, for students to transition for January. And I think, you know, typically when we have new space available to occupy, to use, to reduce those pressures, we typically try to transition those kids as soon as possible to those new spaces.
Trustee Moore?
Thank you. Through you, Mr. Chair. For me, it was the K to 5 that caught my attention, because the general practice, and I know this is an unusual situation, the general practice is the Ottawa Catholic School Board moves families. We don't separate families. We don't pull this shenanigans because it's disruptive and upsetting for families. This is a special situation. I understand that. It's the grade 5s that there's no option for 6 to be in the new school. Personally, I only went to 8 different schools. I get disruption. But some parents would rather they spent with their siblings, because that was more important to them than not, but there's no option here for a grade 6 component at the new school. Is there a reason why?
Through you, Mr. Chair, I think we could have considered, you know, providing an option to remain or to move. We decided to revise that grade structure, the opening grade structure, to a JK to 5, just recognizing the fact that that basically those, you know, those grade 5s or grade 6s for that year, you know, would have a short time at that new school versus typically when we open with a full complement of grades, you know, you have those grade 6s have that full year versus 6 months. So we could have considered that. I think that we decided to keep things relatively straightforward in terms of ensuring that, you know, there were there's sort of viable class sizes and programming for those grade 6s, but we could have considered that.
Follow-up, supplemental. I'd like you to really think about that, especially going forward, because new families, that would be a non-starter. When I moved in, I had 4 kids in grade 6 to JK. They would have been a non-starter, and it wouldn't have mattered to me 3 months in the school if we're opening really, really late. So consider that option next time, please. Thank you.
Just to clarify, this is going to be voted on tonight, so there's no reconsideration.
Sorry, I wasn't asking for reconsideration, but this isn't going to be the only school being built that's going to have timeline problems because of...
I'm aware. Any other questions or comments? Trustee Coburn?
Thanks for the presentation. Clearly, it's been a challenge to come up with a system that satisfies everyone. I actually was going to speak in favor of the K-5 versus the 6 having opened a school in the East End where we looked at a very similar challenge, and the majority of feedback that we received was the children in grade 6 wanted to finish in the school they started with. So when I saw the analysis, I thought that made sense to me. My thoughts probably were similar to Trustees Warren's thoughts, that it might make sense to push this off, but clearly I think we've heard the rationale as to why we need to get on with it as soon as we can, and so I support this going forward.
Trustee Warren? Before you speak, is there anybody else who'd like to speak? Trustee Warren?
Thanks, through you, Mr. Chair. It's just a comment. I just want to say that I do understand the difficulty of trying to please everyone, and I too support this. I just want to make sure that we've looked at every angle because we've seen a lot of different emails and stuff from parents voicing the same concerns. But I think the biggest one was about keeping the grade 6 together in the school they started. So just like Trustee Coburn said, is that I think that's a better solution to do that. The K-5, I agree with the way you're handling that too. So I do appreciate the effort you put into this because I know it hasn't been easy. Thank you.
Mr. Director has something to say.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I know through the dialogues that some of the parents have had with our planning facilities and with the superintendent, the question about cross-boundary transfers has come up as well. So maybe we ask the presenters to just mention how we'll be handling transfers between schools if there is space during reconfiguration.
Through you, Mr. Chair. Again, there is a process for cross-boundary transfers for exceptional cases, and that would be brought to the school principal and through the superintendent of schools for that area. So under certain or exceptional circumstances, those families would be considered.
Having been on staff at 2 schools that had mid-year moves, it's actually goes very smoothly. The kids go home with their backpack one day and go to another school the next day. However, it is more disruptive to staff. So I guess I would like to put a plug in for staff that potentially the move would be over the Christmas holidays from December with the January opening, so that I hope that there'll be some consideration for staff time in this move.
Through you, Mr. Chair, there will be some sort of accommodation with time. So there was conversations with the school whether they create some sort of an activity for a day or a field trip or something like that where it allows us to transition. So hopefully, we'll be able to get it all done through the holidays, but I know that there's release time required for staff to pack and unpack, and so we'll work with the school and the staff to make that happen.
Trustee McEwen.
Thank you. Through you, Mr. Chair. I just needed a bit of clarification on the busing and the school start times. Are you talking about the school? Can you just explain that to me?
Through you, Mr. Chair, I'll tackle the first one in terms of school start times. So St. Benedict and St. Cecilia are both 9:15 starts. Under the plan, obviously, there will be some families that will have children at both schools. The idea was, and we've already broached the topic, and the possibility with OSTA that they could temporarily revise the start times of the schools to provide a 15 or 20-minute gap in start times to assist parents with those arrangements.
Okay. Thank you. That clarifies that.
Is there any other questions? I have a question. When is your drop dead date for a opening for January 1st? Would June be soon enough, or is it September after the summer's work is done?
Through you, Mr. Chair, we know that we have steel delivery once we have a roof on the building. It's pretty straightforward as to the rest of the project. So we'll know probably by May where we sit. So by the end of the summer, we know by September for sure, we will know that we'll be ready for the end of December. Nothing's a guarantee, but we do have another schools being built at the same time in Fernbank, and so the steel delivery is one after the other. So we know that, and Fernbank is on schedule. So we're highly confident that we're going to meet that, but again, nothing's an absolute guarantee. So at this point, I think there's enough time for us to make that decision, and certainly the timelines around that. Once the steel is on site, that's the only long lead item that we wouldn't have, because we've had enough time to organize all the other components. So whether it's rooftop units or finishes or things like that would be required in advance, all of those deliveries would be guaranteed by that point, because they would have been ordered well in advance for the rest of the work. So, although there's a lot of community concern around completion of the project at this point, it's reassuring to see that we are moving online and that Can-Am Steel is honoring their schedules at this point. So to answer the question, probably at the end of June, we'll know pretty well where we sit for September, the confirmation for a January opening.
Thank you. As you know, I've got a whole bunch of projects at my day job, and many jobs are being shoved on a year or 2 years down the road that they're just not starting. Can I have a mover, please? Trustee Warren. And a seconder? Trustee McEwen. That the memorandum from the Superintendent of Planning Facilities dated December 7, 2022, entitled New Barrhaven South Elementary School Temporary Accommodation Plan be received, and that the plan for the temporary accommodation of the New Barrhaven South Elementary School students in advance of the opening of the building at 135 Main Hollyard Lane be approved, as outlined therein. All in favor? Opposed? Carried. Thank you, gentlemen. Item 6, memo from the Superintendent of Planning Facilities, Annual Energy Management Report 2021-2022. Superintendent Vallon.
Good evening, Mr. Chair. And it's my pleasure to bring forward our annual energy management report for the 2021-22 fiscal year and our plans for this upcoming year. The Ottawa Catholic School Board continues to be a provincial leader in energy management and stewardship of resources. As a testament to the work we've done over the past 18 years, we conserve 35% less electricity and 21% less gas today than we started with our energy program back in 2003. This past year, our conservation practices reflected in a $3.6 million cost avoidance in utilities, with nearly $50 million in accumulated savings since 2003 to 2004. All of this has been achieved despite rising utility prices and physical space growth as a result of new construction and added portable classrooms. To give a sense of what we've accomplished, one can compare our efforts to that of removing the equivalent of nearly 13,500 vehicles from our roads. Looking back on our energy consumption for the past fiscal year, the weather variability has an impact on our annual energy demands. Last winter was about 5% cooler than normal and about 1% hotter. This, along with the addition of air conditioning to nearly 230 portables last year, added to our energy consumption. Electricity use was up 9%, gas was up 6%, and water consumption was up 3%. Fortunately, hydro rates came down last year, which helped to offset increased consumption costs. We also continue to have modest solar power generation at 4 of our schools, with plans to add more capacity at our new school sites. In order to support green technologies and in partnership with local utilities, We added 9 new electric vehicle charging stations at some of our high schools this past summer. For this fiscal year, we continue to benefit from previous investments and ongoing energy efficiency improvements. From our report in November on planned capital school renewal projects, we continue to invest in LED lighting retrofits, HVAC upgrades, and other energy-efficient mechanical electrical systems. We anticipate a 350 gigawatt-hour reduction in electrical consumption this year from the benefit of LED light projects in our schools. With the ongoing added ventilation requirements and added gross square footage space from our new portables and new construction, we'll see an increase in gas consumption in the coming year. On a positive note, we were again recognized by the Sustainable Schools program this past June as the top 3 school performer in the province and #1 as one of the larger school boards in the program. That program will probably will be put on a pause for the next 2 years with the data that won't be consistent through the COVID period. We know that at this point they won't have comparables between school boards, so that'll be the last time an announcement's made for probably for 3 years. So I guess we'll stay #1 or #3 for quite some time. There are other programs that we've been discussing with them on other initiatives, especially with these reinvestments on capital. So we continue to work with that program and try to continue with some of our leadership with energy design. Our conservation and demand management plan continues to be on target with our provincial cumulative energy intensity conservation goals. We are on track to meet our 2023-24 targets of a 26% reduction over 5 years. The Ottawa Catholic School Board has the largest participation in the provincial IESO rebate program for electrical and mechanical projects. We're proud of the fact that we have submitted over 140 projects for hydro and gas rebates since the program started in 2009. Every year we are challenged to do more with the resources we have, despite the pressures that work against these goals. One such challenge is the additional equipment run times of new classroom HEPA fan units, rooftop units bringing in outdoor air for longer periods of time, extended day programs, and community use of schools. Despite those challenges, we recognize that health and safety along with comfort are important to a good learning environment. We continue to invest into air conditioning to the remainder of our standalone portable classrooms, along with ventilation upgrades to our older schools. The pandemic has also had an impact on our energy conservation and recycling efforts within our schools. The number of certified eco-schools is down from previous years. As we move towards a post-pandemic world, our focus will be to improve our eco-school participation rates and to re-engage schools' effort to achieve higher conservation results. Energy conservation is more than a single department activity, but a collective effort with our students, staff, school, and community. We strive to encourage a culture of planet-friendly environmental behavior and to work towards a sustainable future. Our multi-year energy management plan continues to support our strategic goals of be community, be well, and be innovative. This completes my report, and I'll be happy to answer questions you might have. Thank you.
Thank you. Questions or comments? Trustee Lawrence.
Thank you through you, Mr. Chair. Mayor, maybe you can't answer this, but how many portables do we have altogether throughout the system?
Through you, Mr. Chair, somewhere in around 370 to 400. So that's including porta packs and standalones.
Okay.
So there's probably close to 200 standalone.
So there's only 80 now that aren't air conditioned.
That's correct. So,
Wow.
So there are some newer ones that had air conditioning, and then the Seavers program introduced about 225, and they were put into the porta packs. So we put these ventilator units, and then there were some. So what we're doing now is we're upgrading portables that might have had a ventilator but not an air conditioning section. So we're introducing like a split system. Like you see inside of like in some of the homes where you have a split air conditioning. So those are we're engaging contractors now to finish that up. So all of our goal is to have all of our portables air conditioned for this coming year. Yeah, it might take us a little longer than the summer, but it will be done probably by October of next year.
That's great. Thank you.
Any other questions? Trustee Moore.
Thank you. Through you, Mr. Chair. I was just wondering, the environmental is, we're 5% colder last year, 1% warmer. And how our schoolyards are adding or hindering your efforts to conserve energy? Because we have a lot of pavement, not as many trees, wind breaks, those sorts of things. Are you looking at, is your department looking at the actual environment?
I'm not sure if there, through you, Mr. Chair, I'm not sure that there's truly a connection between sort of a year-over-year impact on some of those spaces, but we are looking at improving our outdoor learning spaces in the coming years. But as far as like, there's a year-over-year normalization for the results. So just last year was a slightly cooler winter, and so that really is an environmental piece rather than a physical one that impacts some of the energy piece.
Can I supplement that, ask? It's same topic. I'm not even going to change topics this time. No, like if you were in the deep south, our schools would all have white painted roofs, and our school buses would all have white painted roofs to try and deflect the heat. But we're in a climate that's a bit different because we colder in the winter, hot in the summer. So do we use any of those sorts of mitigations to help?
Through you, Mr. Chair, I think that we do look to introduce shading, like so tree planting. So that is something that we do look for, and certainly maximize the amount of green space. As far as the existing asphalt, there's not a whole lot we can do besides removing portions of it as we repave. With our roofs, when we do replace roof membranes, we do introduce a light-colored granular material, so the heat gain, as we replace them, our heat gain wouldn't be as high than a black roof on them. So we are doing that to improve the comfort of the school, reduce the cooling loads in the building itself.
Any other questions or comments? And the mover is Trustee Moore. Seconder, Trustee Coburn. That the memorandum from the Superintendent of Planning and Facilities dated December 7, 2022, entitled Annual Energy Management Report 2021-2022 be received. All in favor? Opposed? Carried. Thank you very much, Superintendent Vella. New business, none. Notice of motions, none. Confirmation of the action report of November 29, 2022. Can I have a mover, please? Trustee Phelan. Seconded by Trustee Lawrence. The action report for the period November 29, 2022 be received. All in favor? Opposed? Carried. Inquiries. If there's none. Administrative announcements. Mr. Director.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I do believe we have a birthday tomorrow for Trustee Sandra Moore, so on behalf of our team, happy birthday. We also last Friday celebrated, well, we didn't celebrate, we're going to do that this evening, but I'd like to congratulate our board chaplain, Father Peter, who was recognized for his 55 years, celebrated ordination of a priest. We do have a cake and a gift for Father Peter, which we'll bring out after the meeting. We don't want cake envy for the thousands that are watching online, so we'll do that right at the end of the meeting. And on behalf of our superintendent team, I wish to offer my sincere thanks to the trustees for your support this past school year, and certainly wish you all and your families a Merry Christmas and a healthy and happy New Year. So thank you from behalf of our team.
Thank you. I would like to echo that on behalf of the board of trustees, the superintendents and school staff. There'll be a note going out from Charlene tomorrow, I think. Merry Christmas to everybody. Thanks for the year. It's been a great year, a great kickoff to the new term. So Merry Christmas to everybody and a very happy, safe New Year. Get vaccinated and keep safe and keep healthy. I need a motion to adjourn, please. Trustee Phelan and Trustee Melito. That the regular board meeting on December 13th be adjourned at, come on phone, 8:54 p.m. All in favor? Opposed? Carried.